So I want to make a part two to my last video. I just went on a walk and I sort of had some more thoughts about it that I want to talk about. But one conclusion I kind of came to that I think makes a lot more sense is I talked about being delusional in the long term, and basically with being so positive that success is going to happen, where it's sort of just like a 2 + 2 = 4, it's just going to happen. But what I want to specifically talk about is that it's the reason it's good to be delusional in the long term rather than like short term or medium term, lengths of time or of what you're trying to reach. Sort of what I mean is, like, when you look at a long-term goal, like for me, in 5 years, at least 5 years, 5 or 6 years by now, I want to be married, and I want to have my dream car, a BMW M2. And it's less about the car. I mean, I do really want to get married, so that's a different thing, but it's less about the car necessarily, as more of it's just an example that I can give you of where I want to be in life after I graduate college, and get a job. And it's like I sort of have to be delusional about that because I can't control those specific things right now. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have the money for the car, and I won't for years. That's just how it is. That's sort of being realistic about it, because that's what the realistic, answer would be to that. Same thing with my wife. It's like, I have no doubt that I'll find her at some point. I just got to put in the work on my end to be the man that's deserving of that and doing the stuff day by day, so that's going to get me there. And I have full, faith that that's true. And at some point, it's making myself available to find that person. And that's where you have to be delusional. Delusional. Yeah, there we go. About that is because you can't change like the small term things about that. You just got to have faith and trust that that's going to work out, and that's going to happen with, whatever general time range you give it. An example of this is like going through school, especially high school, and even all going to school. It's like I was the quieter kid. I just sort of did everything right. Not like a goody two shoes, but I was just, I was a good person. I was an honorable person. I didn't lie, for the most part. Obviously, we all do, but I generally did good things. Everybody respected me, whether they were popular or not popular. I was respected. I never had any, grudges with people. No long-term grudges or anything. I never had that one person that I just hated or hated me. It's just, I went through life of good character, and I think that's a good thing. But what I'm trying to say is I never saw the benefit of that while I was in school until my graduation, because I got all these awards, you know what I mean? And it was like everybody looked up at me and was like, oh wow, you need help carrying all those awards. And it's, I'm not trying to say that it's like it's all about those awards, but it speaks to the effort that I put in. And I think it's as simple as that. That's how I look at it. And it's the first time in my life where it's like something I waited so long for, it had an answer, and I had my reward there, and even though it lasted so short. And sort of that's my example that I give for this, being delusional about the long term. And the reason why we don't do it in the short term, I think, is because you don't need to. You kind of have to be realistic about those. And for an example of that, it's like if you're going to the gym or you're sticking to a diet, you're trying to gain weight, trying to lose weight, or you're making videos like this or whatever, you're practicing an instrument. You have to be realistic, because if you don't, then the job's not going to get done. You have to be realistic in the sense where it's like, if I don't actually drive myself to the gym and put in some amount of effort, then it's not going to happen. Same thing if I don't practice my guitar, a certain amount of times, it's like, if I'm not practicing it, then it's just not going to get done. You can be realistic because you can see results week by week, month by month, in these shorter periods of time, and where it's directly correlated with the effort that you put in to the result that you get. Right? So that's why you have to be more realistic about the short term, but delusional about the long term, because it's just whichever path requires that sort of thinking. I think that's what it comes down to, is your outlook about it, like I discussed in the last one. So hopefully that clears some things up. I know that makes more sense in my head. It's kind of given me a new perspective of like how that makes sense and everything. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about it. What goals you have for the next couple of years, or even like smaller goals that you have. And I don't know if any of these things you guys feel the same way. Purpose in creating this channel is that I know there's people who do think the same way, and I'm just trying to find them, to know that they're out there. Because I know they exist, it's just no one that I know, which is unfortunate, but that's how it is for now. So anyways, hope this video was helpful about looking at the long term versus short term, and how, or rather what mindsets we have to get ourselves to those places. Anyway, thank you for watching.